Hey, welcome to Build&AI. I'm Nia, your AI learning guide. Let's get into it.
Welcome to today's explainer, everyone. If you're here, I know you're ready to peel back the curtain on the digital world we literally interact with every single day. Today, we're diving into the absolute fundamentals of front-end programming. We're going to break down exactly how lines of code translate into the visual, interactive experiences popping up on your screens right now. So get ready for a highly descriptive journey through the core technologies that actually build the web. Okay, let's dive into this. And, well, before we get too technical, we just have to acknowledge this classic developer meme: front-end, back-end, and weekend. You've got the front end, what the user actually sees, the back end, what the server is doing behind the scenes, and of course, the weekend, pretty much the only time a developer gets to sleep, right? It's a great little joke, but it actually hits the nail on the head regarding the real boundary lines in software development. We navigate this divide all the time, but today our total focus is strictly on that top panel, the front end. Here's our quick roadmap for this explainer. First, what is front end? Then front end versus back end. Next, HTML fundamentals, followed by CSS design and styles, and finally, JS interactivity. Let's get to it. Starting with section 1, what is front end? Let's frame this whole concept around the immediate digital environment you're experiencing right this very second. So the crucial point is this: the front end is the part of an application or website that you, the user, see, use, and interact with directly from your browser. Think of it as the perfect marriage of visual design and dynamic client-side behavior. Now, when we say client-side, we're talking about everything actively running on your personal device, your laptop, your phone, rather than way off on some company's distant server. It's the immediate tactile layer of the internet you can actually touch. To ground this in everyday reality, just think about your own browsing habits. You move your mouse over a button, and it smoothly changes color to say, "Hey, I'm clickable." That's front end. You type an email into a form, and it instantly warns you, "Oops, you missed the @ symbol." That is front end. Every drop-down menu, every smooth page transition, all those visual effects that make a website feel alive, all of that is meticulously coded front-end behavior happening right there in your browser. Moving on to section 2, front end versus back end. Now that we've got a handle on what the front end is, we really need to see how it fits into the massive macro ecosystem of the internet. And this brilliantly illustrates the whole setup, the client-server ecosystem. The client, which is your web browser, is our front-end domain. It's constantly talking back and forth with the backend, which is essentially just servers and databases. So your browser asks the server for some data, let's say your profile picture. The backend goes, grabs it from the database, and fires it back. But, and here's the kicker, it is the front end's job to actually construct that visual frame, render the image, and present it to you cleanly. It's the ultimate presenter. All right, section 3, HTML fundamentals. Because to build that amazing client-side experience, we have to start with the structural skeleton, right? And that's HTML. Okay, looking at the anatomy here, there are 4 absolute bedrock concepts you need to know. First, etiquetas, or tags. These define what a piece of content actually is, like an H1 for a big primary heading or a P for a paragraph. Second, elementos, or elements. This is the whole package: the opening tag, the content inside, and the closing tag, the whole shebang. Third, atributos, or attributes. These sneak into the opening tag and give us vital extra info, like the exact URL source for an image. And finally, anidación, or nesting, basically putting elements inside of other elements. It's like a giant set of Russian nesting dolls, building a deeply organized tree of content. This meticulous syntax is exactly how we organize raw text into something the browser can actually read. Now, those tags generally fall into a few massive buckets. We've got text tags that handle our paragraphs, headings, and lists. We have multimedia tags, which are totally responsible for injecting images, audio, and video onto what would otherwise be a blank screen. And crucially, we have link and navigation tags. These are the pathways connecting different HTML documents together. I mean, literally, this is what creates the web part of the World Wide Web. Let's pivot to section 4, CSS design and styles. Because honestly, pure HTML is just a plain black and white skeleton. We need to step into the visual presentation phase. Enter the CSS3 shield, the ultimate symbol of web aesthetics. Cascading style sheets is the language that literally rescues us from that boring default HTML look. Think about it this way. If HTML is the framing and the drywall of a house, CSS is the fresh coat of paint, the interior design, the customized furniture. It's what makes the house actually look good. And the descriptive power of CSS is just massive. It specifically controls your color palettes, your custom typography, your exact sizing, but even more critically, it organizes the layout. It's the boss telling a menu whether to sit fixed at the top of the screen or slide down the side. It manages how elements magically rearrange themselves when you switch from a giant desktop monitor down to a tiny mobile phone screen. It even breathes visual life into the page with smooth transitions and animations. It's a total game changer. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is the logic engine behind how CSS actually applies those styles. It's known as the cascading order. See, when multiple design rules conflict, and they will, the browser follows a strict hierarchy. Number 1, sitting at the bottom of the priority list, are default browser styles. Number 2, which overrides the browser, are external sheet styles, those big dedicated CSS files. Number 3, overriding those, are internal styles written right up in the document's header. And number 4, the absolute top dog that overrides everything else, are inline styles written directly onto the specific HTML element itself. Understanding this cascade is absolutely crucial for troubleshooting why a paragraph simply refuses to turn blue when you tell it to. So how do we apply these styles? We use a CSS selector. Think of a selector as a highly precise targeting system for your HTML skeleton. It's a pattern that basically tells the browser, hey, go find these specific elements over in the structure and apply this specific visual rule to them. It's how CSS knows exactly what to paint. And to target effectively, developers primarily rely on 2 distinct tools, classes and IDs. A class selector, which you mark with a period, like .button, is completely reusable. You can slap it onto 20 different buttons on your page to make sure they all share the exact same style. On the flip side, an ID selector, marked with a hashtag, like #Titolo, is strictly unique. It targets one and literally only one specific element on the entire page. Knowing when to use a reusable class versus a strict, unique ID is really the secret sauce for writing clean, efficient, professional code. Once we've targeted an element, we have to deal with the CSS box model. Honestly, this might be the most important layout concept in front-end design. Every single element on a web page is conceptually wrapped in an invisible rectangular box. The padding is the internal space between your content and the edge of the box. The border is the actual line drawn right around the edge, and the margin is the external space pushing other elements away. To solve real-world layout headaches like, say, why 2 buttons are uncomfortably crashing into each other on screen, a developer just tweaks the margin to push them apart, or bumps up the padding to make the buttons themselves larger and way easier to click. Which brings us to Section 5, JS interactivity. We have our solid HTML structure. We have our beautiful CSS design. Now we need to make it intelligent. Let's move to and see how this builds. JavaScript is essentially the central nervous system. If HTML is the skeleton and CSS is the skin, JS is the dynamic electricity running through the web page. It introduces complex logical operations, math, variables, and event handling that actually responds to your inputs in real time. One of the absolute most fascinating aspects of JavaScript's data structure is this concept of weak and dynamic typing. Basically, it means that when you create a variable to store information, you don't have to rigidly declare what type of data it holds up front. A variable could hold a piece of text at the start of a function, and then, boom, seamlessly change to hold a number later on during execution. Actually, scratch that. It's not just seamless, it's incredibly powerful. This dynamic typing gives developers a massive amount of flexibility and speed when coding interactive logic, letting the browser adapt to data completely on the fly. Wow, we've covered some incredible ground today, haven't we? Moving all the way from macro internet ecosystems right down into the granular rules of code. You now understand the structural skeleton of HTML, the visual targeting and brilliant design of CSS, and the dynamic, flexible logic of JavaScript. So I leave you with this. Armed with these precise, fundamental tools, how will you combine these 3 powerful technologies to architect and build your very first functional web page? The whole toolbox is in your hands now. Thanks for joining me for this explainer, and keep building.
And that's a wrap for today. If this lesson was helpful, go ahead and hit that subscribe button so you never miss a new episode. We drop 3 new lessons every single week, all designed to help you learn, build, and launch with AI. Share this with someone who's on the same journey, and I will see you in the next one.